All right, it is time to begin our Bible study this morning, and we are grateful for your presence. Trust there'll be others coming in as we get moving forward. Do have a few announcements to make. David had began to teaching the Wednesday night class this past Wednesday evening and did an outstanding job, as we knew he would. And so I encourage you, if you did not get to be here on Wednesday, to make sure to attend the Wednesday evening classes. David is going to be doing that series now and done a great job with it the other day, and we're looking forward to his classes. I'm not 100% from where we were. It's been a rough week for us, and as you can still tell, my voice is not right, so I'm kind of conserving my voice somewhat. David told me the first week that I want him to go ahead and take it this morning, and I probably should have told him yeah, but I said no, I'm stubborn, and I'll handle this. And so anyway, we'll make do. Several announcements to be mindful of. There are several on the sick list. Brittany has a couple of her friends. A Cecilia Ligatan, or that's close enough, a friend of hers is having some health issues and is trying some physical therapy now, but may be looking at surgery. And Tiffany Rumney, a friend of her, another friend, her mother passed away, as a member of that family. That's the only two new additions. The others are about the same as they were. A couple of birthdays. Daniel Cratley tomorrow has a birthday. Tyler Mitchell on the 12th, and Garrett Osmond also on the 12th. There'll be a baby shower for Alyssa on the 10th of June, so that's coming up here in a few weeks, and so ladies, be getting ready for that. June the 4th, a fellowship meal, and then Vacation Bible School on the 17th. Then on the 18th, the gospel meeting over in Gray with Alan Webster. So a lot of things going on in the area, and some of it involves us here at North Macon, so let's take advantage of those opportunities as they are available to us. Any other announcements we need as we get started this morning? It's later. There's a flyer on there. I'm thinking it's like 2 weeks from now. I think it's 2 weeks from now. There is a flyer on the board on that one. Any other announcements as we get started? All right, Jim, you lead some word prayer as we start, please.
Gracious and loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that we can come and assemble to learn more from your word. Help us, Father, to be attentive to the things that are taught, to the things that we read in the Bible. We pray, Father, that as we attend these classes, we participate, that we'll open up our minds and our Bibles and study this word that is able to save us if we only obey it. We thank you, Father, for your word, for the power of it. We thank you for the power of prayer, where we can come to you with our thanksgiving, our supplications, that we can come to you on behalf of those who are needing our prayers and those who are requesting prayers on their behalf. There's many on our prayer list, Heavenly Father, that we pray for daily. We thank you for those that are recovering. We thank you, Father, for our government, because it was instituted by you. We know, Father, that we ought to pray for our leaders, pray for them to be successful in leading the American people in the direction in which we should go. Help us, Father, to be the people that you would want us to be as we live this life on this earth, however long or short it may be. You would Brother Harry give them the recollections of the things that you prepared for us today. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thank you.
We are studying the life of Christ, especially right now in the younger years of his life. We began the study by looking at the genealogy, and we spent some time on that. And we looked at the prophesying of his birth. We looked at the miraculous events that took place regarding that. And today we're going to be looking, and we talked some last week about, the instructions to flee and to go into Egypt. We're going to look at that in some more detail today. Really, when we consider Matthew, it basically covers 5 separate events regarding the birth of Christ. One, of course, was, the birth itself, the foretelling of the birth by the angel appearing to Joseph, telling him what was going to happen, and so forth. And then the manger scene that we talked about last week, and then, of course, the flight into Egypt. And that's where we're going to pick up at today, is dealing with the flight into Egypt. In Matthew chapter 2, verses 13 and 14 primarily is where we're going to start at. It's going to focus on these two events right here, or these two things. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeareth to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night, and departed into Egypt. Well, we see here the instructions are to flee into Egypt, and whenever we consider the instructions to go to Egypt, why was Egypt a good choice as a place to go for refuge for Joseph and Mary and Jesus? Why Egypt? Well, one, they are instructed to by the angel. So the instructions were given for that. The location from where they are is relatively short, and safety and security would be primary issues as they were would go into Egypt. And so it was a good choice and a good location for them to do that. Now, if we notice in verse 13, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt, and be there until you're told. So at 14, he arose and did so. Now, have you noticed in the things that we've looked at, how did all this information keep coming to Joseph? In a dream. In a dream. So he keeps receiving this information in a dream. And he heeds to the information that is coming. He listens. He's been obedient to it. And this was God's way of getting the word to him, that the danger that you're in and what you need to do. So, it's in a dream. Now, one thing we notice here is in verse 14 or 13 and 14, when he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt. How soon after the dream would you suppose it was that he departed into Egypt? He and his family. Immediately. Matter of urgency. So it was a matter of urgency. And when the dream was over, he awoke from the dream, he arose, and then they departed. And they head to Egypt as they were instructed to do so. And whenever we consider this, it is a matter of urgency. Herod had given the decree to kill the young males 2 years of age and under. And so time is of essence, and he begins to leave and to follow the instructions that had been given. And so they leave and they go and depart into Egypt. No, where were the wise men at this time that had come and seen him? They were told that they had left. They had departed. Now, did they go back to where they were from? Did they go back to Herod? No, they didn't, did they? And Herod becomes angry and issues the decree to kill these young males of 2 years age and younger. And so it is a matter of urgency. The decree has been sent to kill these young children. And so they flee to Egypt. And it seems that it would be somewhat of a natural place to go. And so, wonder, and I doubt very seriously it would be the case, if when Joseph was told in a dream about the birth of this new child, I wonder if he ever envisioned all the things they were going to encounter. I would have my doubts. Probably not. But it has been a challenge. And I think there's some great lessons there. From the time the surroundings of the birth, the foretelling of his birth, the surroundings of the birth of Christ, the location, no room in the inn, and as we looked at, the being born in a stable, if you will, and a hog trough, I don't imagine he foresaw all that coming. And but nonetheless, he was obedient to the instructions that was given. And now safety is an issue. And so they are told to leave and to flee into Egypt. And of course, they do so. And so it is a matter of urgency. It's a matter of safety for the child and, of course, anybody else that would be around. It's hard to imagine anyone, especially a person in authority, giving such a decree as to kill all these young children. It's hard to imagine anybody that had any compassion, any feelings toward mankind, doing such a thing. But what does that say about Herod the king? Pretty evil, wasn't he? Yeah, pretty evil. He did not have any compassion. And we consider these events that we read about in Matthew. Many of these events are actually prophesied in prophecy, and we read about these events oftentimes in the Old Testament, the various events that take place. And so, so there is a lot to consider here. And if the prophecy is indeed a part of it. No. In verse 18, it said, in Ramah there was a voice heard, lamentation and weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and would not be comforted because they are not. A voice heard in Ramah. This is a quotation from Jeremiah 31 and verse 15. And of course, this originally referred to the mourning of Israel's mothers during their captivity. And so it refers back to that. And so oftentimes there are voices that are references made in the Old Testament there. So they are to go into Egypt. How long do they remain in Egypt? Till Herod died. Was it 2 months, 6 months, 2 years, 7 years?
Good question.
How long? It's probably about 2 years old. It doesn't give us a specific time, but until Herod died. And the instructions are to kill the children that are 2 years of age and younger. So they flee into Egypt for safety, and and remain there until such a time that Herod died, as we see in verses 19 and through 21. But when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. Again, he's getting his information in a dream. An angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, "Arise, take the young child and his mother and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life." And so he did that. And these verses again, it refers to Christ as the young child. So he is very, very young, a young child. And I guess there might be different understandings as to what a age limit a young child might be. In today's society, what would we call a young child age-wise? Toddler, typically, yeah. A toddler. How old was Jesus when he was left by his parents? When they returned home and got a 3-day journey and realized he wasn't with them. He was 12. Now, being 12, how many of us consider a 12-year-old as a young child? No. So I think he was much younger than 12 at this time. And the scripture talks about a young child. We don't have a specific number, but from 2, maybe a little beyond, right in that range is a good guess. For the decree was to kill the children at 2 years of age and younger. So he was still a young child. And so the decree was to that, to do that. And repeatedly, as we see the discussion going on, it constantly refers to Christ as the young child. And so he is a young child. There has been speculation as to how long they were in Egypt. Again, we don't know. I don't think it was an extended length of time in terms of years, but he was a young child when he went as the infant, and he's a young child when he returns back. So I don't think you're talking about a large number of years. And there is speculation how long it might have been. So there are some different opinions regarding how long it may have been. So then it comes down to verses 22 and 23. When he heard that Archelaus did reign in Judea in the room of his father Herod, he was afraid to go thither, notwithstanding being warned of God in a dream. He turned aside into the parts of Galilee. And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, there it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets. He shall be called a Nazarene. Fearing Archelaus. Who was this individual named Archelaus? The son of Herod, and the scriptures tells us that. He is the son of Herod. And, him being now the reigning king, there was a fear of going there. What might happen? Is this individual as harsh as his dad Herod was? So in a dream, we are redirected again to go to another location, Nazareth. Yeah. Sure.
Herod the Great died in 4 BC of an incurable disease. Rome trusted him, but didn't trust his sons. Herod knew Rome wouldn't give his successors as much power, so he divided his kingdom into 3 parts, one for each son. Archelaus got Judea, Samaria, and Idumea. Herod and Antipas received Galilee and Perea. Herod Philip II got Trachonitis. Archelaus, a violent man, began his reign by slaughtering 3,000 influential people. He was banished 9 years later. God didn't want Joseph's family to go into that region of this evil.
So we can see the fear was a legitimate concern. Daniel just read. He's not a very nice guy either. So it was a genuine concern, a genuine fear, and the instructions were, don't go there. And so, again, as we look at all the events that have taken place in these dreams, various dreams, God has revealed the instructions for Joseph, what he is to do. And as a result of his heeding to these dreams, safety is granted, and God is in control. God is looking out for his only begotten son and for his family. So, God is in control. There's no other way. Yeah, David?
And it's interesting, too. God the Father could have struck Herod and Archelaus. He could have taken their lives and immediately gotten safety for Jesus. But he allowed the time to pass and the natural flow of things to happen for them to die. God has never been subservient to time, and he never will be. Galatians 4:4, Paul said, in the fullness of the time, God sent forth his Son. So he allowed the time to pass for Herod to die, and then later Archelaus to be removed. And that's remarkable that God can use time. It's his instrument. He can use it any way he chooses to let time pass, and that's okay. Sometimes we get in a hurry, but God's never in a hurry.
Absolutely. And a very good, very valid point. Time went by, Herod died, Archelaus takes over, and he's removed from office. So things were done on God's time. And that's an excellent point, very valid point. Now, what is time? How do we define time? Now, most of us say, well, 60 seconds to a minute and 24 hours a day, whatever. And that's true as we look at time. But in reality, what is time? That's right.
He's set in motion for us, but as far as God is concerned, he's not affected by time.
Very true. Have you ever heard the expression, we want to spend our time in eternity in heaven, or an expression of something similar to that.
Perspective as saying time is to do God's will.
Absolutely.
You know, because we just here for a spell, they call it. That's time for us to spend our time doing the right deed for God, carrying out His command.
You know, for God, who has always been and always will be, time is nothing.
That's right.
But for us, we haven't been here all the time, and we've got an end date, a set.
Mm-hmm.
So time means a lot to us compared to God.
Henry Hudson, as I mentioned before about Henry, was a unique individual. Good man, but unique in his own way. Henry and I didn't always agree on things. And I used to tell him he could be wrong if he wanted to. But Henry was a good man. However, he once made a statement talking about spending time in eternity. And he had a very good point there. Can you spend eternity's time? You can't. There is no time, as we know time. There is no ending. So you can't spend it because it's not going to run out. It's going to continue on and on. So I thought Henry had a good point when he come up and made mention of that. So you've got the instructions to leave Egypt, and Herod is now dead. Whatever his name was there, Archelaus has become the king, and he's not a good guy, and so the journey back home. The journey begins. Now, that being said, is there anything significant about Nazareth? No. He came and dwelled in a city called Nazareth, as we see in verse 23.
That's where he would spend, he would be living.
Mm-hmm. It was prophesied that he would be there. And, any other significance about Nazareth?
It was at the crossroads of a trade route.
Okay.
So you had people coming in.
Yeah. So it is a city that is to be recognized. What about the Mary and Joseph? Any connection to them as far as the city of Nazareth? It has been suggested that the people there would know about Mary and Joseph, perhaps know them, know of the surroundings and the circumstances. So, and it is, as Jimmy mentioned out, it was a place that had been prophesied that they would, a prophecy. So it is a significant event there. And so, anyway, they end up going back to Nazareth, and he shall be called a Nazarene. And what is a Nazarene? What is the significance of that?
Person who lives in Nazareth. A person who lives in Nazareth.
Okay?
It was prophesied that he would be Nazarene.
It was prophesied he would be a Nazarene. And again, a lot of what we have seen in the first couple chapters of Matthew is dealing with prophecy, things that had been prophesied. And they are being brought forth and fulfilled. And again, it was prophesied that he would be, be called a Nazarene. And what about the life of Christ as a child growing up in Nazareth? What kind of a childhood did he have?
Not told much,
Not told a whole lot.
but he did help his father and learned carpentry.
Uh-huh. I think several things do come forth here.
He also was very learned in scripture in the old law.
Right. Right. So not a whole lot is actually revealed. However, he was obedient to his earthly parents. He respected his parents. He learned from his parents. He learned carpentry. And as Trish pointed out, and exactly right, he grew in stature, grew in wisdom, and certainly developed a understanding and a knowledge of the old law. How old was he whenever we mentioned a while ago? When he was as a child. His parents returned and he was left behind. 12. And when they went back to find him on that 3-day journey, where did they find him at? In the temple. What was he doing? He was teaching. But who was he teaching? Jimmy nailed it. The elite, the wise folks, the philosophers, the doctors, the well-educated people. People of knowledge, people that were of wisdom. And here he is, 12 years old, teaching those things. Yeah, exactly. Now, how many of us know some 12 years old that are what we call pretty smart, pretty wise for their number of years? Yeah. A lot of us do. People 12 years old, we see some of these young folks that are well beyond their years. How many 12-year-olds have you seen that would be able to carry on a educated discussion with the elite?
That was the purpose for him.
Only God
To be able to.
Yeah, only God in the flesh, right.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. I've seen some 12 years old, especially with certain subjects, a lot smarter than I am. Take a 12-year-old and a computer, go for it. You're out of my league. But this is not a typical 12-year-old. This is God's son. How much of his understanding, his knowledge, his learning came from his parents, earthly parents?
Back in the lesson before, you see he was already born with this knowledge that he had. He just had to be born, and that's why he's catching these big time folks.
Mm-hmm.
One that got their head so big you can't get it. That's why he's catching those, and so to speak.
Yeah. Well, you take the knowledge he had, he certainly learned from his earthly parents, absolutely. But this is a different category here. This is a different knowledge, above and beyond. I wonder if his earthly parents could engage in a discussion with him at that level, that magnitude. I don't know the answer to that. But this is God's only begotten Son, God in the flesh.
It's also unique to think that all those learned men would even give him the time of day.
Oh, absolutely.
Listen to him. Not
Absolutely.
young, but apparently he captivated them so that they would listen.
And I think that's exactly right. Excuse me. I think you're exactly right. He had captivated the audience. And I think that's a good expression. He had their attention. And he was teaching them. How many of us, when a 12-year-old or a young person of that range of age comes and starts telling us stuff, teaching us, how many of us really even listen?
Years at that time, and they asking questions, but it's him teaching, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is God's inspired Son. And yeah, David.
Going back to what you were talking about Nazareth, it's interesting how, well, Isaiah 55 said that God's ways are not our ways, his ways are higher than our ways. Most everybody who was expecting the Messiah probably were expecting him to come out of Jerusalem, the city of great renown. But Nazareth, and David whispered this to me a while ago, she's right. Nazareth was not well looked at. As a matter of fact, there were more Arabs in Nazareth than there were Jews. And so it was kind of a wrong side of the tracks kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And then later on, in John 1:45 and 46, when Philip found Nathanael, he said to him, "We found him of whom Moses wrote in the law and also the prophets, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." And Nathanael said to him, "Can any good thing come out of Nazareth?"
Yep.
So he's like, okay, that's the wrong side of the tracks. The Messiah's not going to come from there. Well, he certainly did. And God usually, I think about Bethlehem. Bethlehem was small. I mean, tiny. And so everything that man thought, perhaps, about how the Messiah would come, God did it absolutely, totally differently than the way man thought it would happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it shows you that God's wisdom and our wisdom is not the same. Yeah. God knew what he was doing. And great lessons there for us. So some very, very good points. All right, so next week we're going to begin to look more into beyond the early years of Christ. We're going to begin to look more into his ministry and some of the things he was involved with that. So we'll pick up with that thought next week. All right, we'll stop right there for now.